high D, a dominant driver personality. These people are typically entrepreneurs, CEOs. Their general trait are direct, decisive, ambitious, problem solvers, risk takers, self-starters, independent. Their value to a team or business is they're very bottom line oriented. They're results driven. They place a high value on time. They challenge the status quo. They will innovate for you, and they drive others to achieve goals. They're fantastic delegators. I don't know if you all know much about high emotional intelligence. I encourage you to learn that at a high level, because if you're a high D, you can either be assertive, ambitious, driving, and strong-willed, or if you have low emotional intelligence, you can become aggressive, demanding, egotistical, bossy. You want to know which side of that you fall on. Potential weaknesses: they can overstep authorities, this argumentative attitude, they dislike routines, they attempt too much at once, and they have high expectations of others. Because people tend to think that other people are just like them. Is that true? No, they're not. Everybody's different, right? So if I expect you to act the same way I do, I'm going to be really, really disappointed at the end of the day, right? So their greatest fear is being taken advantage of and wasting their time. Imagine this is your customer. You're going to write them an email. They're going to want to see things in bullet points. They are not going to need the warm and fuzzies. So if you're like, hi, hope your day is going great, just got back from vacation, they do not care. They put a high value on time. Their biggest fear is wasting their time. And if you write an email that is not very pointed, quick, decisive, and they can just make a decision from it, they're not happy campers. So if that's your customer, or if you're sitting with somebody trying to get funding for a project, same thing. If they're a high D, don't waste their time. And being taken advantage of is the other biggest fear. So if you try to overcharge that person, you're out. You're done. They just move on. They won't even give you the time of day. Now, will they pay a high value to not waste their time? Yes, every single time. They don't want to see why. They don't care why. They don't want to know that much information. That's it. Quick, to the point, decisive, and you'll get your point across. So if you have these people as employees, they need new challenges. They need problems to solve, power and authority to take risks and make decisions. You cannot micromanage a high D. If you hire them, just know they're going to manage themselves. They're drivers. You don't need to manage them. There's no reason to. Changing environments in which to work and play, talking and discussing innovative ideas. So they're always going to be talking about high-level things. They want to grow your business probably more than ideal environment should include focusing on future goals and achievements, projects that produce tangible results. They need that dopamine, because every time you reach a goal, you get a shot of dopamine, and that's what keeps us going. So that's what they're looking for, is dopamine. So if you are a perfectionist and you were trying to work with the high D, man, that is not fun, because you'll butt heads all the time, unless you just give them the freedom to make their own decisions, right? High I's, their general traits: enthusiastic, trusting, optimistic, persuasive, talkative, impulsive, poised. Value to team or business is creative problem solvers, great encouragers. They're always like the cheerleader of the group, right? They're always happy. They come in and tell you everything they ate for breakfast and lunch and what they did over the weekend. And if you're a high D, you're like, I do not care, like, what's happening next, right? So now you can kind of see how those two personalities could be conflicting sometimes. They usually have a positive sense of humor. If they have a high emotional intelligence, they negotiate conflicts. They can be peacemakers. They enjoy discussions on many different topics for very long lengths of time. They can be exhausting, so you have to be careful, right? So possible weaknesses: so this need for attention and reward, constant need. If you have a high I in your world, they're going to constantly need to be praised, that they're doing a good job. Inattentive to detail, overuses gestures and facial expressions sometimes, tends to listen only when it's convenient to them, overtalks when they should be listening. Their greatest fear is rejection, right? Now, if this is your customer, your high I customer, and you send them bullet points, how do you think they feel? Slighted, right? Because they want warm and fuzzies, right? They want to be like, oh my goodness, here's what I'm going to do because you said that you really like this, so I'm going to do it this way, right? They want all that information. You send a high D that, they're not going to read past the second sentence. So you got to know your customer, and you got to know the people you work with. They're motivated by flattery, praise, and acceptance, a friendly environment, freedom from many rules and regulations, other people available to help or handle details. The ideal environment is practical procedures, few conflicts and arguments, freedom from controls and too many details, group activities, and professional and social environments. They're very social people. When you're launching a business, what do you think this personality type would fit for? which position? Absolutely, sales and marketing. This is your sales and marketing person. Now, if you get a DI, you don't even have to tell them what to do. They're gonna go figure it out. If you just have an I, then they're going to be fantastic as far as getting everything done, but you're still going to have to give them some instruction, right? So an S, that's somebody that is stable and steady. This is the majority. Most people like stable and steady. Their general traits are good listeners, they're team players. They can be possessive a little bit because they really don't like anything around them to change too much. They're predictable, understanding, friendly, reliable, dependable. This is their value to your team. Loyal team player and friend, compliant to authority. They get along really well with high Ds, no problem. They will listen all day to a high I, no problem. They will help the high C with their details if they need to. They're basically the glue of the company. They're patient and empathetic. They're good at reconciling conflicts, and they're the glue of a team or business. Their possible weaknesses, they will resist change to the fullest degree. If you're like, hey, let's get innovative, and this, you've got the high D that wants to be innovative, they freak out. They're like, no, wait, what do you mean we're going to move spaces? I don't want to do that. What do you mean we're going to change products? We can't do that. So you have to really be careful. These are fantastic people to have, but keep in mind you want to slowly move them into change. Slowly. Their greatest fear is loss of security and any type of change. They're motivated by recognition for loyalty and dependability, safety and security, no sudden changes in procedure or lifestyle, and activities they can start and finish. Their ideal environment, again, practical procedures, stability and predictability. They need to know what's next all the time. If they don't know what's coming, it freaks them out. People, it's very important that you're compassionate to these other behavior types because it can make or break you in business and in personal life. They really do well in a team atmosphere, and they like checklists that are easy to follow. So that way, they have a checklist, they know exactly what to do, it's predictable, they know what's coming next, they can check off the boxes, they're done, they move on to the next thing. Fantastic employee. Compliant and correct is a high C. So keep in mind that typically one of these is a strong leading behavior, and then there's usually another one right behind it. And sometimes they buffer. Their general traits are accurate, they're analytical, they're conscientious, careful, fact finders, they're precise, they have high standards, and they're very systematic. They just want everything to be perfect all the time. The value to the team of the business is they're really the anchor of reality, right? Even-tempered, thorough in all activities, defines each situation, gathers and tests information, reviews and thinks through details, and investigates all options. Possible weaknesses, needs clear-cut boundaries for actions, bound by procedures and methods, gets distracted by details, so like analysis paralysis, we've all heard that, right? Prefers not to verbalize feelings, they just want to get stuff done, and they will usually give in rather than argue because they just don't want it, they don't have a high eye, they don't want to deal with it. They just, okay, I'm done, I want to go back to what I'm doing now. Their greatest fear is criticism. They want everything to be perfect because they don't want to be criticized. It needs to be perfect. If you have a high C in your world anywhere, and you criticize them, you just shatter them. It's totally different than if you criticize any other personality type. Motivated by standards of high quality, limited social activity, detailed tasks, logical organization of information to analyze. Their ideal environment includes tasks and projects that can be followed through completion, specialized or technical tasks, practical work procedures, and strict routines, few conflicts, arguments, or social interactions, detailed checklists to follow and analyze, instructions and reassurance that they're doing what's expected. When I talk about the boss that you want to be when you're running your new company, you've got to really put a lot of thought into this depending on who you are. You're thinking about leading, make sure you're on this side of that leadership scale all the time. And always come from compassion and concern. Because the other person, whether it's a client or an employee, you want to be compassionate and concerned about their needs. So this is an example of what it looks like. So when you're interviewing, I do this very first. I do this on everybody though. I do it on my kids, I do it on my friends, I do it on everybody. Like before I will interact with people, I want to know who they are. This person's 56. Now this is interesting because they show up at a 56. The gray is how you adapt in public. This is how you really are on your own when nobody's watching, right? So they go from a 56 to a 25. And it could be a gauge of emotional intelligence too, right? We have a list of questions that we ask, and if you ever want those questions on interviewing process, I'd be happy to send those to you. Sure. High I, 90 and 95. So very happy-go-lucky personality, right? S, 53, down, and that might just be adapting. And then the C stays pretty steady. So what do you think this person's job, what do you think they'd be good at? So that is a salesperson right there. Their S is high enough, they're going to be a glue in your company, they're not likely to leave. If they're a high S, they're not leaving. They don't like change. So they're going to be loyal, they're going to stay with you. If you get somebody that's a really low S, they're going to outgrow you, and they're going to leave. They're going to find a reason to leave. They always do. High I, they're really good in interpersonal skills, right? They're going to be able to talk, to anybody and sell fleas off a dead cat. Your program, right? High D, it's high enough that they're able to be decisive and make some of those. If you look in the middle there, determined, competitive, responsive. You're not going to have to micromanage that person. What about this person? What do you think? Where do you think they belong? Definitely somebody that's going to be in charge, because they have that really high D. Now, the thing about this is that they have the high C as well, right? So they pay very close attention to detail. This means what, right? This is your very, very typical engineer personality. They can delegate, they can get things done on their own. They're going to be really good with technology, really good with detail, really concise. They are fantastic in business, right? But do not ask them to market for you, and do not ask them to speak to your clients. And if you take somebody too far out of their comfort zone, you're going to stretch their rubber band, and at some point that's going to snap.